I still expect the world to react like it did in the 70s and the 80s. I keep expecting people to say something snarky or to laugh at me, but I've had no trouble. Has been just wonderful.
Welcome to Transparency Talk, a channel for trans people to tell their stories, share their successes, and inspire others with some much needed good news, especially in the current political environment. I'm your host, Ember, a 44-year-old woman of transgender experience. If you want more trans-positive content like this, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Welcome to Transparency Talk. Today, I'm joined by Stefi Faye Adams. She is 63 years old, but only transitioned last year. She always knew that she would much rather be a girl, but like me, she was told she had to be a boy, so she sucked it up, put on a good show, and was quietly disappointed. She married, raised 3 wonderful daughters, divorced after 25 years, and remarried 12 years ago to a sweet girl she remembered from high school. She's been writing computer code since way before it was cool, and continues that now. When she was 40, she went to nursing school and picked up a second profession. As the years passed, the landscape has changed, and so has she. Last year, she discovered that a successful transition was finally within reach. She went for it, pulled the ripcord, broke the shell, transitioned, and in her words, the last year has been absolutely wonderful. Stefi, thank you for joining us to tell your story. Before anything else, how are things going for your transition?
Oh, Ember, it's fantastic. This last year has just felt so wonderful. Um, Being out, being myself, just threw away all the layers of pretense and madness, and in my mind, it was kind of like a big, heavy, bulky overcoat
Mm.
that I had to wear every day, and I took that off, and now it's just me, and I feel so good. I feel free and happy every day. Like I look outside, and things are just almost painfully beautiful. It's so wonderful.
Hell yeah. It's very relatable, and I know a lot of people who encounter stories like ours feel a similar way. Like there's so much weight that's been shed, and the world is just more beautiful because you can actually participate in it for the first freaking time.
Yeah, I started hormones, and a few weeks later started feeling like all five senses had been enhanced. Like everything was richer and deeper and more nuanced. All the sights and sounds and smells and tastes and everything was so much richer and more wonderful. And I don't know what gets the credit on this. I'm sure it's partly chemical from the hormones and partly psychological because I had shed so much in the months leading up to starting hormones, and my brain was feeling better. Uh, Partly because of the hormones and partly because of psychological reasons, but it was really nice.
Hell yeah. Yeah, it's probably a little bit of both. I've noticed that my cognitive function has changed significantly. My memory is much better than it used to be. Still not perfect, but much better. It's almost like now that my brain is running on the hormone that it was engineered for, it's working properly for the first time. But for people like us, uh, these sorts of transitions, they're a long, long time coming. Like you mentioned in your introduction, that you knew from when you were a child. Whereabouts do you remember being aware of the discrepancy as a kid?
Oh, wow. Yeah, we could talk a long time on this one. Uh, little kid, kindergarten, first, second, third grade. stupid things like the boys line up on this side of the hall, the girls line up on that side of the hall, and I knew where I really wanted to be, and I knew where I was supposed to be, and I was a rule follower. I went where they told me to go, and was sad about it. And then then a little bit later, it must have been the early '70s. Um, Dad came home from work one day, and at dinner, he mentioned there was a guy in at work today who's becoming a woman, and
Hmm.
just blew my mind. I was 10 or 11 years old. This was 1970. This was, and I started probing a little bit. What? How's that work?
Mhm.
Really? And it became clear that this was only something that you laughed about, smirked, ridiculed, and then there were other impediments like, well, he has to live as a woman for a year and wear the right clothes and convince everybody. And so this was, um, I grew up in Denver, so this trans woman was, of course, going to the clinic in Trinidad, but she had some business that brought her up to Denver, and that's how my dad encountered her. He worked for the courts, Denver County courts, but it just made a real impression on me. It
Yeah.
is possible. It's physically possible to become a woman, and then that seed was planted in my brain, and I started looking around and started paying attention to all the cues and all the little clues and ideas that were dropping along the way. And it was clear throughout the remainder of the 20th century, as I was a teen and in my 20s and 30s, yeah, you could be a woman. You had to, it would cost you absolutely everything. And at that point, I wasn't willing to pay the price. I wasn't willing to give up absolutely everything in order to become a woman and have no family and no job prospects and no position in society, not even be able to go into a grocery store. It was that extreme in the 20th
Mhm.
century, and we were quite afraid. I tried to come out in the mid 90s, and for a while went to some meetings of cross dressers, and that felt disappointing too because I didn't want to just be a cross dresser.
Yeah,
And
it's
yet
not the
it was
same.
somehow, yeah, putting on clothes in the safety of this building, but then you can't go outside and it's not really, and it's all a costume, and it that was not right. And the great fear of you can't be yourself. That was in the 90s when I was looking around and almost came out and then got scared and went back and continued the charade. Uh, that marriage collapsed, and I reconnected with a girl from high school in 2010. And it must have been about our second or third date that I felt I had to have this out in the open. I had to be honest about this, that I really wanted to be a woman. But I wasn't doing anything about it right now. It was just there. It was be underlying everything. And she understood it, and we moved forward. We married. Uh, that was well, we married in 2012. Things were wonderful and continue to be wonderful. She's had a lot of time to process this and think about it and adjust to it, and come to realize that she is pan. She identifies with the pan label, fully loves me as a woman. We are two women who are married and living together and madly in
Hell yeah.
love now. and that's real, girls. That can happen. And in 2020, lockdown, all the pressures, I started wearing skirts every day. And it helped me feel a little better about myself and the world. The world was such a shit show in 2020.
For sure.
Um, but my wife was supportive of this. If it makes you feel better, if it lets you make sense of the world, and started by borrowing some of her skirts and then ordered some of my own and branched out from there. And by the spring of 23, of course, things were returning to normal. We were back in the office part time. I was doing a split between office and home. And I'd been thinking actually for a couple of years, how am I going to come out to my daughters? And realized I have to come out to my daughters before I come out to anyone else beyond my wife. The last thing I need is for it to circle back and have them see on Facebook their their daddy has changed her profile pic. So I wrote an
Surprise.
essay to them. Yeah, surprise. Um, because I do better expressing myself in writing, and I felt like it would give them a chance to digest it and process it, think about it a little bit without being on the spot with me standing there looking at them waiting for a response or something. So I wrote this nice essay. Actually, I think it'll fit on just 1 or 2 pages, and emailed to all three of them at the same time. And within the next couple days, they all called me, and they were all just fine with this. They accepted it. Okay. Uh, they they were actually surprised that they hadn't known about this before, but here we are now. They can take it and move forward. My
Yeah.
my eldest was they're all grown and independent and living their
Mhm.
own lives. I'm that old. But my oldest was really sweet about it. She took me out for lunch and a pedicure. And it was my first pedicure. It was so
Aw,
sweet. The two of us went and got gel pennies together.
it's really sweet. My youngest did my eyeliner. He was like, "I need to show you how to do this."
You're not doing it right.
I
No, I'm
still can't
still
do it as
not
well
doing
as
it
her.
right.
Yeah.
And then there was yeah, so that was in the spring of 23, and there was a computer conference coming up, and the corporate secretary registered me for the conference, registered a couple of us, and she was going through the registration form for us, and got to the line, "Do you want to list your pronouns?" And I was not out yet, and I absolutely froze, deer in the headlights. I absolutely was not going to say he, him. I could not have that on my name badge for the conference. And yet I was not out at work. And so I said, nothing, nope. And so we left that blank. And that ate at me. And 3 days later, I emailed the conference coordinator and said, change it to she, her.
Hell yeah.
And change the first name to Stefi, because that the registration had gone in my old format, and so that was the tipping point. That was what pushed me over the edge at work. And then once my conference registration was like that, I came back around and dropped the ball or dropped the bomb, dropped the shoe. I don't know what it is for my immediate work team. And actually, I did that. I thought I could go low key, kind of subtle, kind of slip it out there. Uh, I do some acting on the side, and some of my friends through the acting troupe identify as non binary. And they have different names that they use when they're non-binary, and they're non-binary with their friends and the other actors, but not with their family or with their day job. And so I had this silly idea that I could come out kind of partwise as a mix. And so I changed the signature line on my corporate email to Stefi, parentheses, she, her, and then didn't say anything to anybody and just left it there on the thinking that, okay, my friends will see it, my friends will know and understand, and I'll be Steffi with the right pronouns to my friends, but I don't have to make a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
And a few days later, a guy was talking to me on a private Zoom chat about work stuff and said, "So I saw your signature change. You know, that's just going to lead to a lot more confusion, really. You ought to just clear it up." And we were having daily status meetings. We still do. We always do. And the next day at the status meeting, I told the whole group, "This is who I am." And I said, "Yeah, okay, next item."
That's what you want to see, right?
that
Like, you don't
that
want
was
people to
it.
make a
That was
big deal. Just
perfect.
accept it and move along. Like, cool, gotcha. On we go. I love it.
No fuss, no pushback, nothing. And
Yeah.
actually, there was very little mistakes or forgetting. Nobody was intentionally mean about it. Everybody meant to be nice. There were a couple of innocent mistakes, and the dust settled, and everybody has been so sweet about it ever since. Um, my boss hooked me up with the right contact in HR, got a new nameplate on my cubicle, got my corporate email alias changed, got everything just right straight through, and it was so fantastic. And a few weeks later, I sent him an email saying, um, "Thanks for being so wonderful and supportive." And he wrote back saying, "Yeah, that's who you are." It's just,
It's a
it
very
was,
corporate approach. Listen, we got to have the nameplate match, or people get, it's just an efficiency thing. That's all,
yeah. But it's funny how many attitudes and expectations get burned into your brain in your teens and 20s.
Mm.
And so I still expect the world to react like it did in the 70s and the 80s. I keep expecting people to say something snarky or to laugh at me. And a year of being out and having my name and my pronouns and my clothes. And okay, well, you can hear my voice. I would love for it to be a little more feminine, but this is what we've got. Um, my hair is thinner than I'd like, but wigs are uncomfortable. You can't see the beret very well in this video. Berets are awfully cute. I love berets.
I've always
Uh,
said hats are so underutilized these days.
yeah, because I've got decent hair around the sides and back, just not on top. So throw a cap on and you're good to go. But I've had no trouble. Has been just wonderful. And maybe part of it is privilege of age. I'm not a threat to anybody. I'm just a silly old woman. I wonder if maybe some of the people who get more trouble are 20 somethings feel threatened by them or what. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say, and unfortunately, the sociologists haven't really caught up with what's been happening cultural shift wise. Like, are people nicer? Are they more open minded? Or do they just not care about us once we pass a certain age threshold? We just don't
Yeah.
know.
Another interesting phenomenon that I've noticed is cis women are welcoming to me.
Same.
Strangers, before a couple years ago, no strangers talked to me in the store. They didn't need to, or in a restaurant or anything. You're another invisible person, total stranger in the store. And now I'll occasionally get compliments on a necklace or a blouse or a hat or an earrings or something. and it's invariably from cis women, and I read it as a way of them just saying, "Hi, it's okay," and they smile and they're nice to me, and I'm invisible to men, and that's fine.
It's usually for the best, yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to ascribe motive to anyone because I'm sure people do things for various different reasons. But when I see something like that, I think about what I would do in a similar situation. And when I want to communicate to someone, I see you, I want to acknowledge you and say something nice to you, but not comment directly on your appearance in case you're sensitive about it. I'll compliment your earrings or something.
yeah, yeah. It works so well, and
Yeah.
it's really nice when it happens.
Hell yeah, absolutely. My goodness, there's so much we could dig into there. I guess the best starting place is what would you say um a moment in that whole series of experiences filled you with the most joy or pride perhaps?
A couple days ago, my wife and I were at a little festival, Broomfield Days, a town festival that had all sorts of vendors and music and stuff. And we're walking around the festival, and I took her arm the way, okay, if you think of a male female couple, the way the woman would take the man's arm, you can grasp, loop through the upper arm. And I took her arm as a woman would, and she responded to it and cuddled me, and we were walking through the festival, and then I heard, "Hey, Steffi!" And it was the guy from three doors down on our street recognizing us and
Oh.
calling to us there at this festival in front of all of Broomfield. "Hey, Steffi! Hey!"
Mhm.
And he came and hugged me, and so I guess I'm not invisible to all men. So he and his wife and their two little kids were there too. But he not only recognized me, but wasn't afraid to call it out and show it and celebrate it.
Yeah, that's really heartwarming in a few different ways. Like, part of what we're dealing with out in the world is people who think, we're monsters or what have you. But in reality, because what we're doing is an expression of love, love for life, love for being involved in society as who we truly are, the people who see that tend to see us as sort of symbolic of love and compassion and caring. And so you get a lot more positive reactions from people who actually know you, or more often, I should say.
Okay. Always dangerous to generalize about anything, but that
Yeah.
was.
It's just, yeah, that's a really a beautiful story on several different levels. Um,
Oh, and I'd give you another one. I was shopping in Home Depot. We needed a new dining room lamp, and I was going through the lighting section, looking at all the lamps, and then realized that I was out in a skirt, and I was shopping in Home Depot, and it was fine, and it worked, and I picked out the lamp I wanted, and it was good. It was all good, and somehow that was very a very positive moment for me. I I don't pass. I'll probably never pass. But the fact that people see me and accept me and are welcoming and nice to me and just let me live my life is beautiful.
yeah, being able to exist in public just by itself is so huge, especially considering the decades that we've lived through and the huge surge of opposition to our existence, shall we say, recently. Just to get to be is amazing. So you've had a lot of experiences or low key experiences with strangers, some with acquaintances and friends and so forth. But um, what would you say as far as like social stuff and interpersonal relationships? Who has impacted you the most memorably?
So I've got a group of friends that some of us date clear back to college. So we've known each other 45 years. But, and spouses included in the group now. So this little group, we get together like once a month and just do dinner and games. And I came out to them, and what was interesting was how surprised they were
Hmm.
because I didn't think people should be that surprised because uh, for my whole life, because I had this thing inside me that needed some expression, but I was never the trans girl who steals dolls and plays with makeup and all of that. I couldn't be. That's against the rules. I would have gotten laughed at. So I never did any of that. But I still had it inside me. And so it kept looking for little ways to sneak out. Um, I occasionally wore nail polish as early as the 90s. I I took up flute in junior high and played flute in school bands for the next 10 years. I went through several periods of growing my hair too long, but then it was always unruly and it was a mess and it was just a guy with long hair. It was never pretty. All of these things I kept thinking would somehow give me a little femininity, tide me over, satisfy the need. Um, and maybe they did a little bit, but not really. uh, Going to nursing school too was reaching for some femininity, and it helped in a lot of ways. And yet I still wasn't one of the girls. I was the male nurse on the floor.
Hmm.
And so it helped. It was good, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't what I really needed was just to tear down all the pretense and be me. So I felt like I had these little bits leaking out all my life, and so I was surprised when it was a surprise to everybody that I came out. And but they're all nice about it. No, nobody's done anything. They have trouble. The funny thing is, they're good with the name, and they still have trouble with the pronoun. And I
Hmm.
think what's happening is there's a little more conscious thought involved when you say somebody's name. But when you use a pronoun, you're closer to being on autopilot and not really engaging conscious thought. And that's how people are more prone to make mistakes with my pronoun than with my name.
You may have something there. I've been trying to get to the bottom of that myself, and I haven't found a firm conclusion because it seems to be like different people fall into different buckets. Like some people who've known you for years, they just address you a certain way by default, and then they have to overcome habit. Then other people seem to go by uh, unconscious sight reaction kind of thing. And then still other people, um, they're consciously trying to be accepting, but they have like some deeply buried issues with being accepting, and so they think of us as our assigned genders, and then they consciously layer the new pronouns on top, and that's
Right.
when it gets really difficult for them because they're not actually accepting the reality.
if if there's that little tenth of a second pause before the pronoun every time, give it to her.
Yeah, although it's really fun when they do it the other way, when they're hopefully this doesn't happen very often, But when it does happen, um, like they will deliberately try to misgender someone, but they say the correct pronoun and then stop and uncorrect themselves.
Ooh, okay, I haven't had that. The guys at work have been good. They're well, I've got to credit the corporate culture. People always grumble about mandatory trainings,
It's true.
but it has an effect. I believe it laid the groundwork for things to go so smoothly for me at work, and people just know that those are my pronouns, and that's my name.
Yeah, it's good to hear that the programs actually work at least to some extent in, making things more normalized. Would you consider yourself an advocate for greater inclusion and awareness?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was easier when I was younger to be critical of people. My mom and her dad were strong influences on me in this regard, and they made great currency out of criticizing others behind their back. They would talk about, oh, this awful newscaster, oh, this horrible person I saw at the store today, and go on to tell you what was wrong with these other people. And that, of course, from a young age, that influenced me. And it's only recently that I've been able to recognize that, set it aside, and come to a better understanding of, yeah, there's huge diversity, and it's not a problem. Just let people do it. Uh, so what if you don't like the goth aesthetic or whatever the case may be? It doesn't hurt you. Leave it alone. So what? Let her do whatever she wants to do. So that's been a bit of growth for me just in the last gosh, I don't know, 10 years or so. Finally getting away from that conditioning that happened when I was young. And I saw a great t-shirt at Denver Pride Fest back in June. Somebody had a shirt that said, I don't care how you were raised, get over that shit.
Nice. Yeah, often we have to break down our own barriers, but then there's also other people's barriers, and then there's the people who are just off by themselves being all judgy. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. Get over your nonsense because what other people are doing is none of your damn business anyway. My goodness. What would you say um a personal quality that you've developed or enhanced through your experiences?
There's going to be a lot of shit that happens in life to you that you don't have control over. But you
Mhm.
always have control over how you react to it. And so you can decide to agonize over it and dwell on it and stay up all night. And I've done that. I've been there, burned through a lot of antacids, hating what somebody said or what somebody did, and or you can figure out how to move on and take care of yourself.
Yeah. Make things better. And on that note, I would like to move into future stuff. Um, Making oneself better being a great segue there. So yeah, that it's see we're professionals up in here. It's smooth
Yeah.
transitions all the way. Uh,
Segue.
yes. So what goals do you have moving forward? Are there dreams that you feel more confident about pursuing now from here going forward?
I just want to fully be myself and enjoy life. And I don't know how much I've got left. I think I'm in good health, but then I keep reading reports of so and so died this week,
Mm.
and they're more or less my age, and it's unnerving, and so eh, I can't wait for it. I can't save for it anymore. I've got to enjoy and move forward and just do what I want to do and live for me now. Just living honestly and truthfully and enjoying every bit of it, finding the joy in it. I realized this year that I always had death in my back pocket. I was never actively suicidal, but entertained the suicidal ideation off and on throughout the years, and it was always kind of there in the back of my mind that, well, I could always just off myself, and somehow that persisted until this year. And this year, I have gained a new understanding of things that I didn't previously understand. The a fierce will to live. No, I'm not done yet. I need more. I'm not going anywhere. This is desperately beautiful, and I've got to stay here longer. And no, no, no death. Get it away.
I can appreciate it for a couple of different reasons. I myself, when I made the decision to actually go for transition, because transition is scary. You know, there's
Oh,
you don't know for sure what's coming,
jeez.
whether you'll be accepted, whether you'll be beaten to death in a Walmart parking lot. You just don't know. But as
Why did we wait this
soon,
long to do it? It's very
right?
scary. Yes.
Yeah. But as soon as I made the decision to go for it, I found I suddenly cared about my health. Like I actually wanted to live now. I immediately quit smoking and I started caring about my weight. I'm down over 140 pounds so far. It's
Yes.
fucking
Yes.
amazing how much more you want to be here when you can actually live your life.
Yes.
And that's a big part of the beauty is by actually wanting to be here, you appreciate things more. And it's like, oh goodness, look at that lovely tree or whatever, you know? It's oh my, but I could go on a big old rant about that. I've talked about it other places and other times. I want to keep the focus on you, and I've got one more for you. Um, what message of advice would you give to a young transgender person just beginning their journey?
Just slow down and listen to your heart and be yourself. We're doing this just to enjoy life and to find some honesty and some clarity, and it'll work. Relax the expectations of yourself and of others. You're not going to just pass immediately, and don't be heartbroken when you don't. Maybe your goal needs to be just finding some honesty and clarity and serenity.
That's pretty good advice. Stefi, thank you so much for sharing your story today. Thank you all so much for watching. Positive reflections in our community are so important right now, so please do subscribe and consider sharing this video on all the socials to help get the word out about what we're doing here. If you'd like to support this show, a link to our Ko-Fi is in the description. If you'd like to share your story, you can email the show at transparencytalkshow@gmail.com. Until next time, stay positive.